Welcome to the target stream for MintPress News. I'm your host, Robert Inlakesh. As always, thank you to everyone for joining us since our last stream on Monday. Israel has bombed Beirut, expanded its invasion of Lebanon, while the US has been engaging in lower level clashes with Iran in the Persian Gulf. So there's a lot to cover, including the Gaza Strip and the developments there also. And before that, before we begin, the live stream and all the work we do at MintPress is supported by our members. So we do call on you to join us for as little as $5 per month on Patreon. We were banned on PayPal and GoFundMe and had our fundraisers taken down and targeted by the Israel lobby and an Israeli OnlyFans model. So we need your support to keep MintPress alive so that we can continue exposing the stories that the corporate media refuses to touch. So everyone is aware, we are doing these live streams every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. CST. So that's twice per week. So make sure you tune in to both of these episodes. Of course, today we're going to be looking at the resistance in Lebanon and what has been happening on the ground, because there have been some enormous developments, but we're also going to look at how that is impacting the other fronts, because what is going on the ground in Lebanon is having an impact on what we're seeing between the United States and Iran, but also the developments in the Gaza Strip. And so there's a number of different issues to get into here. First of all, just wanted to pull this up here. This was a story that came out today on Axios News, where they're claiming that the US and Iran have reached a deal, but Trump's final approval is needed, officials say. So, of course, the Israeli media, even CNN, came out and backed this up and said that a White House source had informed them that a memorandum of understanding had been agreed upon by Iran and by the United States. And yet Iran came out and basically just called this nonsense, and that nothing of the sort had been reached. And this is what we can expect from the Israeli Barak Ravid and Axios News, which has been frequently reporting the exact same thing, that a deal is imminent. It's going to happen straight away. Someone put up this graphic about how many times here he said it over this period, as you can see. And it's just constant stories about a deal being approved between the United States and Iran. But of course, no evidence really to support this, anonymous sources. And also what we're hearing from Axios frequently is the claim that there's some sort of feud between Donald Trump and Netanyahu, and they're fighting. And then that gives Netanyahu the image of he's pushing back against the United States and he's making sure he's fighting for Israel and what Israel wants and demands. Meanwhile, there have been clashes that have been ongoing. The third is, I believe, still ongoing now in the Persian Gulf. But yesterday, the IRGC officially announced, in the past, it had engaged in these clashes near the Strait of Hormuz with the US, but it refrained from announcing everything it would do. And we also saw that Iraqi groups had taken on the responsibility of firing on some targets also in retaliation for what had been done to Iran. But the IRGC officially announced that they targeted a US base in Kuwait. So things are definitely heating up, to say the least. And meanwhile, as we're hearing about the imminent deal, according to Axios News, for like the 700th time within the last month, Donald Trump recently had this to say.
It's going to be open to everybody. It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
So just casually threatening to blow up a U.S. ally like it's nothing. But apparently, we're close to a deal, and he's about to sign something with Iran. That's according to the reports that we have got. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the entire world suffers as the Strait of Hormuz is closed, the global supply chains, food as well. It's going to impact food insecurity, especially across Asia. And, everyone's even suffering at the pump. But the Israelis have a different take on things, because Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking today, and he said something very interesting, which I don't think has been covered in the mainstream corporate media, but I'll pull up this here just as a reference point. So Netanyahu says that closing the Strait of Hormuz actually can be good for Israel, because then all of the countries that depend on the energy supplies coming and the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to turn away and they're going to turn to Israel for their energy supplies, and it's going to make them richer. And Benjamin Netanyahu decided to tell the entire world about that. Of course, he said it in Hebrew, but it's like the Israelis don't understand that the rest of the world can translate from Hebrew into English or Arabic or other languages to know what they're saying. Sometimes they speak, you'll see that in Hebrew and English, the Israeli rhetoric and propaganda it's completely different. The reason why I pulled up this article here is to note that while everyone else is suffering economically, Israel's economy was shrinking until the Iran war happened. It started rebounding when the Iran war happened. So I think that's important context for everything that's been going on. That being said, right now, Israel is going on an absolute rampage in the Gaza Strip, and that is very much worth noting before we get into what's happening with Lebanon, because the entire reason this is happening, here are some images. This is from Khan Yunis, an airstrike that was just committed during what is supposed to be a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. And here's one of their targets. This is a tent city in the Mawasi area, which for a long time Israel said was a safe zone, a civilian safe zone. Of course, they've bombed it throughout the genocide. And there are videos that have emerged from Khan Yunis, from Deir al-Balah, where in that area of the Gaza Strip, they issued evacuation orders from Shati refugee camp, from Gaza City and other areas. And the footage is, of course, too horrific to show here. And this is on top of the escalation of the bombing of civilian areas inside of Lebanon. One thing to note here about what's currently happening in the Gaza Strip is that Israel is losing militarily in Lebanon, and it's being embarrassed in Lebanon by the Lebanese resistance. And because it's losing, it is taking out its anger on the civilian population of the Gaza Strip. That's what it's doing right now, because it understands that Gaza can't fight back. Or if they do fight back, it's going to bring on, evidently, larger civilian massacres than are happening now. Now it's a few dozen per day, and they're forcing people out of the homes that in some cases they live in, well, in most cases, if they get to live in buildings, if they're lucky enough and they have relatives who have money in Gaza and they can live in buildings, those buildings are partially destroyed anyway. They're not up to the standards of living that buildings would be in any of the countries that you're watching this from, unless you are, of course, watching this from the Gaza Strip or Lebanon. But in terms of what is happening there, the people are being tormented so much that it will eventually end up in an explosion. And by this is a prediction I'll make. If Israel continues behaving in this way towards the Gaza Strip, they should expect an attack which will come, a retaliation, which will be bigger than October 7. Because what they're doing right now is they have killed all possibility of returning to any level of normality, of there being a future with reconstruction, Palestinian autonomy. They won't accept any of that. Nothing. And watching them, by the way. So this is something that the entire world is complicit in, because watching this ceasefire during which Israel has mass murdered more than 900 Palestinians in Gaza, because as we know, when the word ceasefire is heard by Israeli leaders, they think you cease and we fire. And that is exactly what has happened. Hamas has not violated the ceasefire. Hamas has not fired on the Israelis, but they have continuously fired on the civilian population of the Gaza Strip. And recently, they have been launching assassination strikes in Gaza, taking out leading commanders of the Qassam brigades of Hamas. And again, the reason why they are doing that is because they failed today in their airstrikes against Beirut, trying to take out the head of Hezbollah's missile force. So that assassination failed, and they've not been able to take out the Secretary General of Hezbollah, for instance, Sheikh Naim Qassem. They failed. They attempted that twice. So they're going after easy targets. And the pressure that they're putting on here is purely for it's sadism, and it's to feed the Israeli public. And you won't hear this. The corporate media will ignore everything that's happening altogether and pretend like there's still a ceasefire. But all of what you're seeing now, all of these massacres that are occurring in the Gaza Strip, and the targeted assassinations of the leadership of the Qassam and other Palestinian resistance movements, is all to make the Israeli public happy, because their army is getting battered and they are being humiliated by Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's why they're doing it. And by the way, after 2006, when Israel was defeated by Hezbollah and forced to withdraw from southern Lebanon, Israel then went in 2008-9 and bombarded the Gaza Strip and implemented the so-called Dahiya doctrine, which they developed, and of course, in the 2006 war, from bombing the southern suburbs of Beirut. And what did the Israeli leadership say at the time? They said, this is revenge for Lebanon. So what I'm saying is not far-stretched. This is exactly why they're doing this. And they know they can get away with it. And they know, unlike Hezbollah, the Palestinian groups can't respond in the same way. They can't retaliate. They can't hurt the Israelis back like they did, unless Israel comes to them and they can launch ambushes on them. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And again, if this continues, there will be a response that will, in my opinion, be an enormous response. And all of those 20 countries in what's known as the Civil Military Coordination Center, which oversees the ceasefire supposedly, and is supposed to be controlled by CENTCOM, but of course Israel controls it. They sit there, more than 20 different countries in the CMCC, which is supposed to stop and monitor and help implement the ceasefire in Gaza. So these 20 countries sit there and watch every single atrocity Israel commits, thousands of them, every single day. All of these countries, including Arab and Muslim countries that are part of the CMCC. They watch it. They watch it happen. And so all of them are responsible. Because if there is going to be a change on the ground in Gaza, those countries should have stood up, but they didn't. They didn't stand up. So they will blame Gaza for eventually there will be some kind of response. It might not be today. It might not be in a few weeks. It might take some time. But eventually there will be an explosion, because they're not going to sit there and just be slaughtered without responding constantly. And this is the way Israel treats Gaza, as a punching bag. They get beaten up by Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, or they fail in their objectives to overthrow the Iranian government, and then they go to Gaza and they kill a bunch of kids and assassinate a leader in the Qassam brigades of Hamas. and then celebrate themselves and puff out their chests and pretend like they're winners and that they're achieving something. And that is the sick, twisted reality of what's currently going on. And then Netanyahu today, again, stating that he is going to give the order to take over 70% of the Gaza Strip. Now, it was supposed to be 54% of the Gaza Strip that Israel was entitled to in phase 1 of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. They, of course, violated that and established their yellow line in 60% of the Gaza Strip. And then in that 60%, there's the Israeli army, but there's also 5 different ISIS-linked death squads that have been trained of collaborators, thugs, murderers, rapists, because Israel at the start of the genocide bombed the prisons in Gaza to allow all of the people on death row, all of the people that were put in prison in Gaza for all sorts of drug trafficking, manslaughter, murder, everything you could think of, right? Everything, rape, all of it. And these people got out of the jails, and what did they do? Israel gave them a job looting aid, humanitarian aid, and demanding that bribes be paid for partial amounts of the aid trucks to be able to they take part of the aid off and allow the rest of the aid to go to Gaza. And then they would grab this aid, they would hoard it under Israeli supervision, under the watchful eye of Israeli drones, these collaborators, these murderers, these thugs, these criminals, and these ISIS and Al-Qaeda linked Takfiri terrorists would take that food and hoard it and then drip feed it onto the black market in the Gaza Strip. So that's what the Israelis do, and that's what they have been implementing in Gaza. That being said, again, on the Lebanon front, they aren't doing all that well. So before we get into the political situation in Lebanon, we're going to take a look at some of the footage, and all of this footage, by the way, that you're going to watch here has come out since Monday. So since we've been on here, and just a disclaimer before we show the footage, we make this disclaimer in every single show. This is not an endorsement, but for the viewers on information and education. So we're going to show these videos. This is perhaps one of the let's say the most compelling videos, one of the most controversial ones for the Israelis, which was released. So we'll take a look. So this was released earlier this week. This is obviously the FPV drone that is being loaded up here, and they actually show you the drone in this footage. You see in the back, they've put this poster up. This is actually in Farsi. And the reason why is because they dedicated this attack to the victims of the Minab school bombing that the United States struck in Iran, killing over 100 school children. And so this operation right here, it occurred in Bint Jbeil in southern Lebanon, where the Israeli forces are currently operating. And you're watching as the drone here, again, uncontested. They don't know these drones are even heading towards them until the last moment, until it's too late. You're seeing it, again, locate the Israeli military vehicle filled with soldiers there. That vehicle is packed full of Israeli soldiers. And it will approach. And just at the last second here, you'll see them dive out, desperately diving to the floor to avoid getting hit in this way. And you'll see here, they list the number of soldiers. And of course, that's a direct hit. So those 2 soldiers, at the very least, inside that vehicle were torched. So that's a direct hit there on that military vehicle, completely incapable of doing anything and just looking up in fear. And as you see, this soldier took it upon himself. I think he got his leg caught there at the end. If we watch there, he actually got his leg caught I have watched this video a number of times now, but that's the first time. Yeah, I feel like his leg appeared to have gotten caught there. Evidently, Israel is not going to give us all of the details of what the aftermath was there, and there wasn't another drone to film it, but safe to assume that those soldiers didn't survive, at least the two sitting there in the military vehicle. And this video in particular has caused a lot of controversy. The Israeli media were very upset about that emerging. Another series of videos, of course, have also come out since. So I'm just going to pull this up here. So this is in the Hunin barracks. And again, all of these videos of that's an Iron Dome battery there. So Israel's Iron Dome air defense system. And they're going to target it, these two batteries with two separate drones. And of course, the result is that they were destroyed. They're no longer able to operate. And to repair these things is extremely costly. But you'll realize from this that they're able to fly undetected into an Israeli barracks along the border area and hit Israel's air defense batteries, the Iron Dome air defense batteries. Now, although there's no video of this, that's the first one. You'll see the impact there. They sort of zoomed into that so you can see that it got mangled by the first drone. And this is the second drone coming. But although there's no video of this, Hezbollah have announced that they've targeted the operators as well in a number of attacks of the Iron Dome air defense systems. So there's the second Iron Dome battery there, and it is directly struck. Again, that takes these out of service. Iron Dome battery there is no more. So the second video. Before we get into that, I'd just like to comment about the Iron Dome itself, because the Iron Dome battery, I think back in 2014, Israel announced that they had around 11 of these throughout the country. Now, since 2014, I'm sure there's many more, but Hezbollah has destroyed at least 7, they say, of these systems and made them inoperable. So assuming at least that, the number has not gone up exponentially since then, at least in the north, because we're talking about throughout the entire country, a lot of those Iron Dome batteries have probably been impacted, a decent percentage of them. Again, we don't have updated statistics on how many Iron Dome batteries and systems are currently being operated throughout occupied Palestine. But along the northern border, taking out these Iron Dome batteries is important to Hezbollah, because the Iron Dome, a lot of people don't know this and they don't understand the difference between the different air defense systems that the Israelis have. So the Iron Dome can only really shoot down rockets. The rockets fired on a fixed trajectory and they go and intercept them. They can't shoot down cruise missiles. They can't intercept ballistic missiles, right? They're just not fast enough to do it. They can't detect them. They're not effective. But they're partially effective for shooting down rockets. So in a barrage of rockets, maybe you can get 1 or 2, and it can identify the ones that perhaps are going to hit the target with the most accuracy, and the Iron Dome will try and go after them. So the more of these Iron Dome batteries that are taken out, the less effective Israel is going to be at shooting down rocket attacks. And Hezbollah has an abundance of rockets. It has a massive rocket arsenal. And the rockets are very, very cheap to produce, very easy to produce, opposed to things like their ballistic missiles and cruise missiles that they have, these anti-ship missiles. These are more sophisticated. These are more difficult. But the Katyusha rockets and the likes, they're rather simple to produce. So taking out those Iron Dome batteries is important because, if you fire a barrage of 12 rockets at an Israeli military gathering or a site or whatever, a military base, or even a settlement, you might get all of them through towards the target, instead of one or two of them being shot down, which can be the difference between hitting a target directly and not. So that is, of course, very important. And also keep in mind that the Israelis drained a lot of their air defense munitions because of the attacks coming in from Iran, because Iran, of course, used ballistic missiles. So it was using its Arrow systems, THAAD, which is the U.S. ballistic missile defense system, and David Sling as well that they used. So getting back to the video. So again, uncontested, approaching an Israeli military site, and completely unaware. You see the netting that they've got up here. The Israelis have tried to improvise and stop the drone attacks by placing netting above their military vehicles and different sites, hoping in their minds that they will somehow catch the drones before they hit their targets. And so far, it doesn't seem like that's been very effective. They're still doing it, maybe because they believe that it's going to be somewhat effective. And you're seeing here, they're taking out a radar. So the Hezbollah are going after these radars and these anti-drone detectors and communication devices inside of occupied Palestine, northern occupied Palestine, and Israeli military sites in southern Lebanon as well, along that border area, and doing it very effectively. You'll see that they, in some of these videos that have been published, again, all of this is simply just from Monday. So this is in the past few days. Everything you're seeing here has come out. This was rather strange because I don't know why they placed these exclamation marks around. These are cows, by the way. I don't know if you can make that out. Yeah, they know that there's cows in this military base. And then here, they just circle around, but the target that they're going to hit, or what they're searching for at least, are Israeli soldiers in this video, I believe. Sorry, actually, this is another attack on an anti-drone radar. There's a separate video that is in the exact same area. They launched 2 drones at the same site, and we'll look at that video in a minute. But again, they're going after their radars, their communications, and they're preparing for a long fight. They're trying to degrade the ability of the Israeli military to detect drones, to shoot down rocket barrages. They're messing with their communications. So Hezbollah are not messing around. They're fighting a long game here. Here are some more. Another series of videos. Again, I put them all together because there are so many, and I haven't even included every single video that has come out since. So here's an attack on a Merkava tank, again hitting a weak spot on the tank. There is no second video there, and again attacking a military position. But yes, there's no secondary footage for the first attack. Yeah, this is the attack on the same barracks. And here they were searching for, basically it says here that we're waiting for you to come out from your hiding place. That's what this comes up. So this is like a warning because there are multiple drones fired towards this site. And of course, there are no Israeli soldiers in there, but they're showing that they're doing reconnaissance and they're looking for them. They're looking for the Israeli soldiers and they're hunting them. That's what the takeaway is from that video. That's why I included it in there, because there's countless videos that are coming out. This is in Al-Khayam, also in South Lebanon, towards the east. And again, this drone is going and hunting those the excavation equipment that is being brought in. And like we covered on the last live stream here, looking at Hezbollah drone footage, they are targeting this equipment. And a lot of this is not, you would think this is just all belonging to the Israeli military. Before we get into this footage. So you would think that perhaps all of that, those Volvos there, are belonging to the Israeli military. But the reality is that a lot of this equipment is actually owned by Israeli private businesses. And they're bringing that stuff in because there is a shortage of it. And of course, from fighting in Gaza, Hamas took out, and Islamic Jihad and PFLP and the other groups took out a lot of Israeli military vehicles, or at least damaged them. And so they've hired, and they have this whole private industry that gets paid for destroying civilian infrastructure, not only in southern Lebanon, but also in the Gaza Strip. So this is in Naqoura. And we'll take a look at, I just wanted to point out on the map where this is. So there are two drones here. But before we get to that, I do just want to show everyone, because seeing where this actually is on the map is important. So we'll just pull this up here. So Naqoura, where this video that we're watching is very close to the blue line, or the so-called border. Israel has never declared its borders, and it's not really a border, but it shows how vulnerable they are. So the reason, again, I wanted to pull this up is the Israelis in the past, what they had done in 2006, for instance. In 2006 was a military failure for the Israelis. They withdrew and they were forced out, and everyone sort of agrees that Israel failed and they were defeated in 2006. Israel, this is Naqoura down here, and this is how much trouble you're going to see in this video, how much trouble they are in just sitting there in Naqoura. All the way up here, Israel got all the way up to the Litani River. And that's what they did in 2006 within about 30 days. They got all the way to the Litani River. Today, Israel are getting smashed to pieces in Naqoura. And that's why I wanted to pull up that map there, just to show everyone, when Israel is claiming that it is, it has full operational control over an area, and that it is doing so well militarily, and is trying to sell you that lie of how well it's doing. Do remember, Israel was defeated in 2006, and Israel has been fighting for way more than 30 days in southern Lebanon, and Naqoura is where it's where this is happening. So this is a dual attack on Israeli vehicles, and this is not very far; it's a few miles away from the border. The camera on this FPV drone isn't the best, but again, here they hit a vehicle transporting a soldier. And then here is this second drone that you're seeing coming in. So the Israelis, despite their rhetoric about crushing Lebanon and Hezbollah, today the Northern Command put out a statement about how Hezbollah is weak and it's fighting for its survival and it's on its last legs. Well, I mean, Israel's not doing all that well, is it? Because just a few miles away from the border, and this is supposed to be an area that you've cleared and you occupy, and you're getting pieced up with drones. So you're not really doing all that well, because it took you 30 days in 2006 to get along the coastline, basically, up to the Litani River. This doesn't look like the Litani River to me. So here's this second drone incoming. And again, you're not seeing, like, there are some videos that have been published by Hezbollah of these FPV drones. Yeah, and there you go. Here's this hit on the military vehicle. Hezbollah has published footage of where the Israelis have, at the last minute, realized and tried to open fire on their drones. But the vast majority of the footage emerging from with these FPV drones, we're not seeing any evidence that the Israelis have any idea what's coming at them. They have no idea. And everywhere they're putting up these fish nets to try and protect themselves. It's not working all that well. It's not working at all. And the Israelis, of course, they like to claim victory with everything that they do. But they're failing to combat this problem, and they're still not going after Hezbollah. They're still destroying civilian homes. They're still killing hundreds upon hundreds of civilians and indiscriminately bombing civilian areas and issuing evacuation orders for civilian areas. And one video, actually, I wanted to pull this up because last time we spoke about the commander of the 401st being killed, who is accused of being responsible for the murder of Hind Rajab, who was infamously murdered. The little girl who was infamously murdered by the Israeli occupation forces in the Gaza Strip. But we didn't actually look at the footage because Hezbollah released the footage of their operation to target this commander. So here, there's this footage of him. His name's Mayer Biderman or Biederman, depending upon how it's supposed to be published. So this guy is accused of being responsible for the murder of Hind Rajab. I believe also the commander before him of the 401st Armored Brigade was killed by Hamas. He was assassinated by Hamas, I believe. When it comes to this guy, I don't think it's confirmed 100%, but that's the accusation. And regardless, he was based, of course, in the Gaza Strip and was responsible for committing genocide there. So Hezbollah, this is the video that they produced. They did reconnaissance of the area that he was in. Seeing this footage here, they're showing the different attacks in the area. And you're seeing them monitor, and they're, again, like they do reconnaissance for a long period of time. And they afterwards, there was an interview that was released, I believe, at the Gray Zone. I saw a clip of it anyway. That there was an interview, and Hezbollah said that this was not the first operation of its kind where they specifically targeted an Israeli official, a high-ranking Israeli official, a commander. This is just the first one that has been publicly acknowledged by the Israelis. But there have been other instances as well. And so you're seeing some of the other operations in the area that they committed. These are different FPV drone hits on logistical vehicles. I believe they hit armored personnel carriers, jeeps in the area as well. And this is going to lead up to the building where Hezbollah said that they got information, and there's the target, that they had received information that not only this commander was here, that he was present, they knew where the operations room was, and apparently there was a meeting that was taking place at this time. And they knew that that meeting was taking place. They managed to monitor them in the area, and then, of course, launched the drone into the commander's position and took him out. So this was actually a very complex operation, and we're seeing some of the footage. And again, without this drone footage, the Israelis could easily deny this. And again, hit on supplies. They could easily deny all of this having happened, but because it was carried out with these FPV drones, we have footage. Everything is documented. The Israelis can't get away from it. And the last we heard, and there's been no update, the last we heard about this commander is that he was rushed to hospital in critical condition. This was when it took place. And he underwent an emergency brain surgery. And there's nothing else we heard after that. But it's safe to say that he's probably mangled. And he's not coming back to the battlefield anytime soon. We're seeing some of the Israeli soldier casualties being evacuated there. That's footage, obviously, that came out from the Israeli side. So that footage was published. And I do believe that's important to note. But another video was released of Hezbollah directly combating. So this footage here is from the Israeli advance on Hadatha. And here, what they're basically saying is that the Israelis advanced 3 times on Hadatha, and then they came back, and there was clashes that they engaged in zero distance. They got zero highlighted there at the bottom in Arabic. And so the Israelis, again, last time we spoke briefly about what was happening and how the Israelis were repelled. And now they've published footage of what that looked like on the ground. Of this is how close they are, and zero distance clashes where they're waiting for the Israeli army to advance, and they're set up, and we're seeing them demonstrate what it looks like. And in the course of this, that right there that you're seeing is, I believe, an armored personnel carrier that's pulling along ammunition. So it's towing ammunition there. And the Israelis, see, this is how they enter an area. They just, they have no idea they're being monitored. But here Hezbollah is, here the fighters of Hezbollah are, and they're right there next to them. And this is what I've been saying, actually, a number of times. I've been saying this repeatedly on the streams here. I'm just going to pull up where this is again for people to demonstrate, because Israel recently is threatening a lot further north than this. Originally, it said that, it was taking territory lower down in Lebanon as its buffer zone. Then it started advancing towards Hadatha, and this is how far it is from the border. This is like, again, the Israelis, they made these announcements today where they said, well, we've crossed the Litani River in some places. And what they're referring to is because, like it's somewhat of an achievement to get to the Litani River, which runs along here, right? It's somewhat of an achievement to make it there if you're doing it where you're advancing along the coastline. But when you're advancing from here to, it's not the same distance. And again, the Israelis and them advancing towards Hadatha, they failed. They got cut down attempting to advance. And like I was saying, the reason I pulled up the map, Israel claims that there's this big, long stretch of territory all down in the south, and all of this, they have full control in it, and they just enter an area hiding inside their armored personnel carriers, hiding inside of their tanks, and they have no idea that there are Hezbollah fighters literally watching them the entire time and are ready to repel their offensive. And in many cases, Hezbollah, they don't try to hold a town or a village if it's going to mean high casualties for their fighters, because it's guerrilla warfare. This is asymmetric warfare tactics that they're using, that they're employing here. So they're not trying to unnecessarily lose fighters. They're trying to inflict damage and defeat the enemy through a war of attrition where they're making them bleed. They're bogging them down. So let them come into areas. And that's exactly what we see here. In this footage, they let them enter and they're watching them. And then the Israelis, they have no idea what's going on. And the fighters inside of the village who know their terrain very well will emerge and are capable of targeting the Israelis. And showing like the patches there, the red one, I believe. What is that? The one before? Okay. So here again, they've spotted, and all day they're able to watch those Israeli forces. So when Israel says we have full operational control and we managed to seize an area, well, at this point they believe that they've taken an area, they've entered into certain points around Hadatha, and right next to them, Hezbollah are monitoring their positions and of course fire upon them. And they managed to destroy a number of Israeli tanks, repelling the Israeli advance into their territory. Seeing this footage here. And again, watching this here. So this is what it looks like for the Israelis to try and enter a village. And, during a ceasefire, this was their attempted advance. But of course, it was repelled by the actions of Hezbollah. And you're not right here, like you're seeing this footage on the ground of the fighters directly engaging here. And it should be of note that this is, again, like comparable to what you would be seeing in the videos that the Qassam brigades of Hamas would release in some ways, in that, Hezbollah does not have tanks. They're ambushing the Israelis, they're taking out their military vehicles, and they're forcing them to retreat. And the Israelis are also at a disadvantage in terms of manpower here as well. So with that, just to pull this down here, these videos are frequently being released, and they're showing us a taste of what is actually going on the ground against the Israelis. And the Israelis right now, because of all of this, have lost their minds. And because they're losing their minds over losing militarily against Hezbollah, we're seeing that they're lashing out in other ways. They've decided to, for example, issue evacuation orders here for the city of Sur, or Tyre in English. And, they're in the area, I believe there's around 150,000 people living there. And they've just told them, get up and leave, or else we're going to bomb you. And before they issued this, they started dropping bombs in the area. They started targeting civilian buildings, and they've been committing civilian massacres inside of South Lebanon. The Israelis, they try to sell this as if they're currently in a ceasefire. So everyone's aware, again, this is Tyre here, Naqoura down here. They haven't reached the area, the Israelis, right? They haven't actually reached this area. Instead, they're issuing evacuation orders, and they're forcing people from their homes as a form of collective punishment. That's the whole purpose here, to collectively punish the civilian population in southern Lebanon and ensure that they feel as if the pressure is on. Meanwhile, in what I like to call Planet Nawaf Salam, there are so-called ceasefire talks and normalization discussions going on, because Israel, of course, did strike Beirut directly, which, again, as part of the so-called ceasefire, striking the capital city of Lebanon should not have been in the books, but for the Israelis, this is not a problem. And for the puppet regime headed by Nawaf Salam and Joseph Aoun, the prime minister and the president of Lebanon, they're still engaged in these normalization talks, as there are civilian massacres in the south of the country, when an entire city is forced to evacuate, when all of the towns and the villages of the south near the border are being systematically blown to pieces, destroyed, when there's a mass ethnic cleansing campaign going on against a portion of the Lebanese population, all of this. And they're sitting around a table, please, master, please normalize, allow us to normalize. And meanwhile, the real patriots of the country are saying, well, what are you doing? We're being attacked. Our capital's being attacked. Our country is being invaded. People around the world can see the obvious truth. And that's that Hezbollah is resisting, but the Lebanese army, and just within the past 24 hours, another member of the Lebanese army was killed by Israeli airstrikes. The Lebanese army is not allowed to open fire on Israel. Why? Because the Lebanese government won't allow it to. Why? Because the Lebanese government is owned by the United States, and it's funded by the United States and armed by the United States. And Tom Barak, the envoy, the Trump administration envoy, openly said, laughing and giggling on an interview last year, that we don't supply the Lebanese army in order to defend against Israel. We supply them to fight their own people. So it's very obvious. So the puppet regime in Beirut is twiddling its thumbs. And apparently Nawaf Salam came out of his little hiding hole and managed to conjure up a statement of condemnation of what Israel has been doing, before he crawls back into the hole and shuts his mouth and allows, his collaborator regime to continue to participate in normalization talks in Washington, D.C. And he condemned it. Sabah al-khair, good on you. You've noticed something's happening in your country. Wow, good on you, Nawaf Salam. So that is the state of the Lebanese government. They're still engaging in these talks because, again, this is what happens when your government is just a puppet of the United States, and it doesn't it's not sovereign. You're not nationalists. You don't care about your country. You just care about money, and you would rather try and divide your country and throw it into a civil war, even though you're going to voice your opposition to a civil war. And all your TV stations are going to be condemnatory of the one group that's resisting, a belligerent occupier that has been occupying your territory. Obviously, we can go way back, and they've been occupying the Sheba farms and the Ghajar village even after Israel ran away in 2006 and evacuated its occupation force in the year 2000. Of course, all the result of Hezbollah, not of the Lebanese army, not of the Lebanese state, which did nothing when their people were under occupation. It was Hezbollah and the other groups that managed to force out the Israeli occupation, not the Lebanese government, which treated the south of Lebanon as if it wasn't even part of the country, basically. And that's the treatment of the south of the country. It's not a part of Lebanon in their minds. That, you know, when you're in Planet Nawaf Salam, the prime minister of Lebanon, you know, you're in another world. Apparently, there is, but, you know, your country is being physically occupied by Israeli soldiers who are seizing more territory, who are annihilating entire villages, who are bombing historical sites, who are killing your members of your armed forces, your security personnel, your emergency workers, your ambulance drivers, your paramedics, your journalists, right? Just killing everyone and anywhere, killing your children, attacking your capital city, attacking a major dam inside your country that is the largest dam which supplies water to your people. And you just sit there and just take it, apparently. Just like, you know, like let's sit down in Washington with our paymasters to talk about normalizing with the occupation, with the regime that is occupying us. Before we get to a bit more footage, breaking that down, this story emerged today. I pulled up this from France 24 because the way that it's phrased is quite interesting. So the Israeli entities to be added to UN sexual violence list over alleged Palestinian detainee abuse. This word right here is very, very funny, isn't it, from the mainstream corporate media? Alleged. What's alleged about it? Alleged violence, sexual violence against Palestinian detainees. Well, is it alleged when there's a video like 10 soldiers gang raping a Palestinian detainee in Sedtiman detention facility when they were arrested over it? And, or was it the fact that the woman, the IDF's top lawyer who leaked the video proving it, the alleged sexual abuse of Palestinian detainees, the alleged, right? When the woman, the IDF's top lawyer, released the video, initially that caused controversy, and the Israelis were forced to detain the 10 soldiers that were accused of gang rape. Then what happened from that point on is that there were protests, right to rape protests throughout occupied Palestine by the Israelis. The Israelis protested for the right to rape. They went on, actively invaded Israeli military sites, attacked police stations. Members of the Knesset advocated openly inside the Knesset for the right to rape Palestinian detainees. Openly. Then the detainees started getting released, right, from detention. The Israeli soldiers who were detained ended up getting released one by one. And they were brought on national television and celebrated as heroes. And now we're to the point where Israeli comedians are doing stand-up and using the issue and using the fact that the dogs are used to rape detainees, Palestinian detainees, a well-known fact, right? Well documented, using it as the butt of their joke. It is their joke. They find it funny that this has happened. And so not only that the IDF's top lawyer was eventually herself arrested, resigned from her position, attempted suicide twice, according to the reports, right? She tried to run away. And then all the soldiers were let off scot-free. Nothing happened. Nothing. They were let off scot-free. So when we see alleged, because they are so cowardly, these corporate media outlets, that even when there's a video of it, even when there's countless cases, so many cases that you can't even, like, I don't even know how to count them, that have been Palestinian eyewitness testimonies, victim testimonies, photographic evidence, video evidence. There's UN reports on it, human rights reports on it, including Israel's top human rights organization, B'Tselem, which has covered it, right? Mass, systematic sexual violence, which has been reported on for years, by the way. This is all late. But what's Israel's response to this? Israel calls the United Nations anti-Semitic, of course, because it couldn't be the fact that you're raping Palestinian prisoners. It's just the fact that they hate Jewish people for being Jewish, the UN, right, of all places. And Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, Israel, as a countermeasure against the UN, severed all ties with Antonio Guterres. And they said, we'll wait for his replacement. And see how there's no accountability whatsoever? Because Antonio Guterres, again, doesn't have a spine. Because when it came to the attack on the 2 illegal attacks violating the UN Charter on Iran, he didn't even call it a violation of the UN Charter. He's like, well, we urge both sides to refrain from violence, blah, blah, blah. So even someone like him, that they can't tell, how dare any entity, the UN put us on a blacklist for doing what we're doing and having a culture of celebrating that. Like, there's no accountability. Like, the Israelis just call someone an anti-Semite and get on with it. That's basically what it is. And then they seek retribution against them. You're anti-Semitic, and we're going to come after you. And there's going to be no retribution. There's going to be no repercussions for our own actions. And that's the way that the Israelis function. And again, that's why we're seeing this, that Israel in the Gaza Strip are now just bombing tents and causing civilian massacres in Gaza in the midst of a ceasefire, or why Israel for 15 entire months violated the ceasefire in Lebanon every single day, 15,400 times. As per UNIFIL's monitoring, they monitored these violations. This is not Lebanon's numbers. These are not Hezbollah's numbers. These are UN numbers. The most violations of a ceasefire in human history. Just like, again, like there's no repercussions for any of their actions whatsoever. They can simply get away with whatever they want, and because of that, that's why we see that they continue to behave in this way. That being said, this right here is a compilation of a number of the attacks, because some people haven't seen all of the attacks and the nature of them and what's been going on. So as a little bit of a summary, some of these are from the past week here. Others are from a little bit earlier, but this is a compilation that I just thought I'd pull up for everyone to watch. So here, this is the video that came out the other day. It's another attack on Iron Dome, soldier gatherings, Iron Dome again. You're seeing here, and this is just a selection. This is not, I believe whoever edited this put out a statement I sort of posted that this is all of the attacks. This is by no means every single FPV drone operation that Hezbollah have released so far, but this is a lot of them. This is a whole compilation of what they've been targeting, just so everyone is aware. And over time, they've been getting more sophisticated, the drone operators, in terms of how they are using these drones, how well they can operate them, how accurate they are, the targets that they're choosing. And this completely horrifies the Israelis because they have no way out of this. They have no way to deny what is happening to them. There's a psychological warfare element here that they have to face. And this is round the clock. This is what's happening to them round the clock. Hezbollah are escalating the pace of their operations in response to Israel's escalated attacks on the south of the country, now going into Beirut. And of course, as well, their invasion of Lebanese territory. So as you're seeing here in all of these videos, the Israelis, like, they're dealing with 30 plus of these kind of operations every single day at this point. And even if they continue bombing civilian buildings and they keep killing civilians at the rate that they are. There's a tank kill hit that was shown from a second camera. And even if they continue doing what they are, at the end of the day, there's only a limited amount of the time that the Israelis can survive having to suffer for all of this, because they are not used to taking this sort of a beating. And they're getting hit with full accuracy here. Oh, someone off the stage. So Israel right now, of course, is seeking to revive the war with Iran. It's also escalating its attack on the Gaza Strip. There are some clashes that have been going on the past few hours. There were some developments in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran managed reportedly to shoot down an MQ-9 drone belonging to the United States, according to the reports that have been issued. And there is a large number of killed in the Gaza Strip as there's more attacks on the besieged territory. The worst, perhaps today, looks like the death toll will be a lot higher from an attack on the Mawasi area. There's a number of killed that have been announced there. And again, the Israelis are attacking because of all the footage that you've seen here today of the Hezbollah operations, which are happening, round the clock against the Israelis who are occupying their territory. The Israelis are frustrated. The Israelis failed an assassination attempt in Lebanon today. The Israelis want to try and project some sort of strength. And so Gaza is the most convenient place for them to do this. So they're just going and attacking civilian sites and then occasionally carrying out some assassinations of senior officials in Palestinian armed groups. And to them, that gives them a boost. Their society can watch this as well and feel as if they are achieving something. And the real question here comes down to whether there can be some sort of deal struck, perhaps after another round of confrontations between the US and Iran, that between Iran and the United States, that will include not only Lebanon, but the Gaza Strip. Because alone, Israel will be capable of picking on Gaza in any way it seeks to. The only group which I know for a fact will act in support of the Palestinians in Gaza will be Yemen's Ansar Allah. They will indeed continue to fire and support Gaza, and they may even start reacting soon to what we're seeing in the Gaza Strip, because they have stood beside Gaza every step of the way. And in terms of a government, of a single country, Yemen is the only one that has done that. So if there can be some sort of an agreement which Iran manages to include the Gaza front in, then this is a way to save the Gaza Strip, or perhaps if there is an ability for the Palestinian groups to fight on the side of Iran. But the weak point here is that Gaza suffers and cannot properly defend itself. In Lebanon, Israel is getting a beating. But in Gaza, unless the Israeli military goes in on the ground and is confronted by the fighters, the Palestinian fighters, there is not an enormous amount that they can do really from a distance. They don't have access to the same technology that Hezbollah has. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people are turning their heads away from this. They don't want to focus on Gaza, and it's not an interesting story anymore until the genocide is back in the headlines. But this is a crucial front, and it's a crucial front in the regional war that many people are ignoring, because it actually determines a lot of outcomes, what happens in the Gaza Strip. We have to remember that it was Gaza where this all started. All of this started on the Gaza front. And since Israel's fighting what it calls a 7-front war, but this was ultimately all about what happened with the Palestinian resistance and what was done to the people of Gaza. And this was the reason why Hezbollah's former Secretary General, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, put in place the red line that until there is a ceasefire in Gaza and an end of the war in Gaza, he would not stop firing, no matter where the region was taken. Because not only because this is obviously something that is argued from a moral position, but also because this impacts Lebanon, this impacts Iran, and all of the others under the banner of the Iranian-led axis of resistance, which of course includes the Palestinians. And, at the heart of the issue here of regional resistance to the United States and Israel is the Palestinian cause. So without it, then what is the cause? The cause, in a way, is massively impacted. So there, in the future, will have to be something put in place in order to protect the Palestinians in Gaza as part of a cessation of hostilities, or as part of the war that will be ongoing to liberate the occupied territories. Because Israel is not going to stop here with Gaza. It's going to continue to use its ISIS-linked death squads as a proxy force there. It's going to continue to pursue its expansionist endeavors. And they're already talking about other countries beyond Syria, beyond Lebanon, and of course the Palestinian occupied territories, all of the land of Palestine. So with that all being said, that was our live stream for today. If you did get through to the end here, make sure you do hit that like button. Please leave a comment below, share this video, and we will be back next Monday, 4 p.m. CST, same time. We do these live streams again every Monday and Thursday, and we will be bringing you the latest in the resistance updates, what's happening on the ground. And I believe it is important to show this footage and to explain what's happening on the ground, because with all of the death and destruction that Israel is inflicting, it is quite demoralizing. And part of Israel's strategy here is to, of course, demoralize you and to make you feel as if it's useless and worthless. The cause, right, is a worthless cause, and that everything is lost. That is not the case. And that's why they don't want to expose you to what's actually happening on the ground, because they're not winning in the way that they claim they are winning. They're losing on not just 7 fronts, they're losing on the 8th front as well, which is the media front. And so the Israelis are actually taking a huge hit. And it's important to understand where things are, while, of course, acknowledging the reality of the horrors that are being perpetrated, but not being complacent and being consumed in the idea of and a defeatist mentality here. Because the people in Gaza are not defeated, and they don't accept defeat, and neither do the people in Lebanon, and they are still fighting and will continue to fight. And so it's important to show that struggle and try to elaborate on it and explain what exactly is happening. So with that all being said, again, thank you to everyone for being on here today, and we will see you again on Monday with the latest updates.